Have you ever stopped and wondered why, in a world that's more connected than ever before, the gap between the haves and the have-nots just seems to be getting wider? Well, today we're going to unpack that massive question, and we're going to do it using the ideas of a really groundbreaking sociologist.
I mean, just think about it for a second. We're living in this age of incredible technology, right? We've got instant communication, global markets at our fingertips. But for so many people, this digital world feels less like a land of opportunity and more like a deeply divided landscape.
You see it everywhere. On one side, you've got this global tech elite who are accumulating wealth at a scale we've never seen before, basically shaping our digital future. And on the other side, a massive class of digital laborers. You know, the gig workers, the content moderators, call center agents. They're the ones powering this whole new economy, but often with very little security. The tech feels new, sure, but is the basic structure of inequality really any different?
To really get to the bottom of this, we need a guide. And our guide for this explainer is the sociologist Gerhard Lenski. His theories about how societies evolve give us this incredibly powerful lens to see not just where we've come from, but to understand exactly where we are right now.
Okay, let's dive right into this. At the heart of Lenski's work is this big idea that technology isn't just about cool new gadgets. Nope, it's the fundamental engine that drives societal change and, this is the key part, it's what fuels inequality. And it all kicks off with one core concept. And that concept is economic surplus. Basically, it's all the extra stuff a society produces that isn't immediately needed just to survive. For Lenski, the entire drama of human history really boils down to the struggle over who gets to control this extra stuff. Because whoever controls the surplus, well, they're the ones who hold the power.
And you can really see this laid out in a simple four-step chain. First, a society develops better technology. Think something like a plow, or today, a computer algorithm. Second, that new tech creates an economic surplus, that extra stuff we talked about. Third, that surplus doesn't get shared equally. A small elite always manages to gain control over it. And the result? Step 4, inequality gets bigger.
You know, Lenski was really ahead of the curve on this. He saw that in our modern world, the most valuable resource, the ultimate source of that surplus, wasn't land or factories anymore. It was information. Control over knowledge, over data, over digital infrastructure, that's what creates the powerful new elites of our time.
Okay, but it gets even more interesting. There's another really critical layer to his theory. Technology doesn't just pop up out of thin air. The ability of a society to develop new tech has always been shaped by the physical world it lives in. So a society's ecology, its climate, its geography, what resources it has, that basically sets the stage. Some societies just got lucky. They had environments with plants and animals that were easy to domesticate, which let them develop agriculture and advance really quickly. Others faced much harsher conditions, which slowed them down. And what this did was create a fundamentally uneven playing field, right from the very start of human history. And all of this leads to one of Lenski's biggest and most important ideas, multilinear evolution. He argued that there isn't just one single path of progress that every society is supposed to follow. No, instead, societies evolve and adapt along many different paths, all of them shaped by their own unique situations. I mean, you have to understand, this was a huge shift in thinking. The older idea was that there was this single ladder of progress, right, with so-called primitive societies at the bottom and industrial Europe way up at the top. Lenski just completely threw out that ladder. He said, look, a society of desert nomads and a society of rainforest farmers aren't on the same path at all. They're on different paths, each one a perfectly valid adaptation to their own world. All right, so let's get concrete here. What does this adaptation actually look like in the real world? Because sometimes it leads to incredible success, and other times to absolute disaster. First, let's look at a success story. And this is just a fascinating example of how a cultural adaptation, a new piece of technology, didn't just change a society, it literally changed human biology. The fancy term for this is gene-culture coevolution. It's basically this idea that the things we do, our culture, our technology, can actually put pressure on us to evolve, to literally change our DNA over a long time. This creates new advantages for some and disadvantages for others. And the classic example, the one that just illustrates this perfectly, is lactase persistence. So, some societies developed the technology of dairying. Suddenly, being able to digest milk as an adult became this huge survival advantage. And over generations, a genetic mutation for exactly that trait spread like wildfire through those populations. A cultural technology literally drove a change in our genes. But, it doesn't always work out so well. Evolution isn't always a success story. When a technology is a bad fit for its environment, especially when it's forced on a society from the outside, the results can be absolutely devastating. Lenski had a term for this too: maladaptive evolution. This is what happens when a society's evolutionary path is violently interrupted, and new technologies are brought in not to help the local people, but to exploit them.
A really tragic textbook example of this is what happened in colonial Bengal. The British came in and imposed their own technologies, like railways that were designed only to pull resources out of the country, and farming systems that forced people to grow cash crops for export. This totally wrecked the local ecosystem and society, which had been finely tuned for centuries. And the outcome? Horrific famines and a cycle of dependency that crippled the region for generations.
Okay, so let's bring all this back home. What are these historical patterns of surplus, of ecology, of adaptation? What do they tell us about the digital inequality that we see all around us today? Well, Lenski's framework gives us the perfect language to describe what's happening now. It helps us see this modern phenomenon for what it really is: digital neo-colonialism. It's a new kind of dependency, where entire regions rely on foreign tech, where their local data is mined and monetized by corporations overseas, and where their own local innovation gets smothered.
And just look at the parallels here. They're striking. The dominant resource has changed from land and raw materials to information and data. The elite class has gone from landowners to the global tech elite. The labor class has shifted from peasants to digital laborers. And the mechanism of control has evolved from colonialism to digital neocolonialism. The underlying playbook, it's hauntingly familiar.
And that's really the crucial point here. These deep, structural patterns of inequality that divide our world, they aren't new. They're ancient. They're rooted in that age-old fight over the surplus that technology creates. The names change, the faces change, the tools get more sophisticated, but the fundamental dynamic of power and control stays pretty much the same. Which leaves all of us with a really vital question to think about. As we keep building this digital future, are we actually creating a genuinely flatter, more connected world for everyone? Or are we just using our incredible new tools to build a taller, more complex, and maybe even more rigid global hierarchy? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this one.